again.
6:36 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I heard something intriguing during Joan's newscast.
Uh-oh. What'd you hear?
Joan, can you play that audio of Zelensky? He's I don't know. He's
going on.
Yeah, go and play that.
Сьогодні у мене буде контакт з президентом Трампом.
You know, it's interesting. Even in Ukrainian, he still sounds like he's spewing BS. You can hear it even in whatever language he's speaking.
Yeah.
That's all I got on that. Thank you, Joan.
You're welcome.
The decline of the Democrats. I loved what Laura Ingraham did last night. She talked about big headlines. The party's over for the Democrats. Double entendre, of course. But the decline of the Democrat Party, it does seem to be in full display. Now, coming up at 7:06, I've got Brian Wilson. We're going to talk about just this because he is seeing, I'm just going to give you a tease about what Brian's going to say. He has seen parties in peril before. I'm going to ask Brian if he has ever seen it this bad before. Now, yesterday, Chuck Schumer on The View. Now, you would have thought that he would have learned from Kamala Harris's complete and utter meltdown on The View when she was asked, is there anything you would do different from Joe Biden? And she said, I can't think of one. Completely destroyed her campaign. I mean, that was one of many things that destroyed her campaign. She was a flawed candidate. So Chuck Schumer goes on The View with all of this controversy about the continuing resolution. And he gave the campaigns for the Republicans in the midterm elections a great talking point.
And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, the land and water that I own, or my employees? They hate government. Government's a barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
Okay, good.
So, that music, they were trying to get Schumer to shut up because they had to go to break. And it is very cringe, and if you've seen the original video, he stumbled through it. And so I wanted to clean it up because I wanted to make sure that you got the point. The point is that he's actually right. We did make our money. We did build our wealth, and we're just trying to pay our rent. We're just trying to buy food for our kids. We're trying to save for our retirement. So, yeah, I will fully admit, I absolutely want to keep more of my money. But you heard Chuck Schumer there in that audio where he's basically mocking the American people, mocking you, mocking me. People who are just trying to make it day to day. And that's his attitude. Very cringy, and yes, indeed, very ad-worthy.
I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes.
Thank you, Chuck.
That's just amazing to hear him say something like that.
Isn't it incredible?
I was watching, what was that, on The View?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching that. Not that I was watching The View, but I was watching clips of it. I thought, are you kidding me? Like, we're not supposed to want to keep the money that we make?
That's the attitude. But see, isn't that the very sanctimonious, arrogant attitude of the swamp? Where they're like, this is our money, not your money. How dare you want to keep more of your money? And so to me, number one, again, I appreciate Chuck Schumer giving us this very ad-worthy comment for the midterm elections. But you know, the notion of this swampy Democrat who has been a leading power figure in Washington, D.C. for decades, mocking Americans who want to keep their money instead of our government wasting it on Sesame Street in Iraq or funding terrorists in Syria, which is exactly what he advocates and the Democrats have been advocating for. Because remember what I always say. It's not only how much we spent, but also what that money was spent on.
I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers?
All right, so think about what Donald Trump campaigned on. This is why I believe that this is an absolutely lethal mistake by Chuck Schumer. I like to call him Up Chuck.
Very nicely done.
Thank you. Think about Trump's campaign. Crazy government spending under Joe Biden. No tax on tips. No taxes on Social Security. No taxes on overtime. And Donald Trump wants to extend the Trump tax cuts, which, by the way, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, very popular. And yes, regardless of what you may have heard, Doge is also very popular because of what they're finding, especially among conservatives. So to me, Chuck Schumer saying what he has said really is a rallying cry for the Republicans. I mean, to me, I don't know about you folks, but to me, this is a rallying cry just as much as Hillary Clinton calling us deplorables or Biden calling us a threat to democracy and the rest of that nonsense. And so, yes, you are watching the Democrats' disarray full display. Now, Chuck Schumer actually did say one thing that made sense. Here's what he said that actually made sense and did resonate with yours truly.
This is a different, horrible kettle of fish. They hate the government.
I do hate the government. I do hate the government. Because I don't believe that the government is for the people. I believe the government is for the government. I believe the government feels like its sole purpose is to protect itself. You know what I see the government as? Not right now, but because Trump is in charge and he is doing his darndest to cut the bureaucracy. But the government is like, you remember the old movie, The Blob? Remember that? Where the blob would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what the government is. And so when Chuck Schumer says,
this is a different, horrible kettle of fish. They hate the government.
All right. Fact check true. You know what? You want to change the Daily Dan poll to ask people, do you hate the government? Yes or no? Is Chuck Schumer right? Is Chuck Schumer right? Do you hate the government?
You want another 100% poll here?
You know what? I'm curious as to what people would say. Let's do it. Now, earlier we had a poll because the poll is ever changing these days. Earlier, we had a poll, and the poll was, do you believe that the Democrat Party will ever be able to reinvent itself? Will the Democrat Party be able to survive the Civil War? And I think the last time we checked, it was like, you know, what is it, KGB? What are the numbers real quick?
Final poll numbers were 58% no to 41% yes. Will the Democrats recover from their infighting?
All right, so there you go. So a lot of people saying yes and a lot of people saying no. Personally, and I did mention this before, I believe that they're going to need some sort of a figure outside of politics that will be able to come in and shake up the party just like Donald Trump did. People are talking about Stephen A. Smith. We've got a lot more straight ahead. 6:45 on Super Talk 99.7. Time to check the roads.
South Nashville, 24 westbound at the on-ramp from Murfreesboro Pike. We've got an accident. It's been moved to the shoulder. Nashboro Village, Bell Road, an accident at Smith Springs Road. No problems coming in on 40 or 65. No unusual delays on 440. I'm Christy O'Brien.
As far as your weather today, a high of 69, high winds. We've got rain and storms later tonight. Your complete forecast coming up at 7 o'clock on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So this was a big moment yesterday. A lot of big moments in a number of different news stories yesterday. But for Schumer to go on The View and mock people for being greedy, clearly not a good look as people are continuing to struggle with the price of stuff. So since all of this has happened, a lot of questions have been asked specifically about his future in the party, Chuck Schumer's. Now, remember what this is all about. This is all about the continuing resolution that was passed in the House. It goes to the Senate, and Chuck Schumer and a handful of senators voted with the Republicans to pass that continuing resolution, which was considered a victory for Donald Trump. Schumer has come out and he said, we don't want, with the midterm elections down the horizon a bit, we don't want a government shutdown to have to contend with. We don't want to be blamed for that. And so now you've got a lot of folks, especially the younger people in the party, that are saying that he needs to step down. A lot of questions being asked, and here's just a few sound bites.
You were crucial in getting President Joe Biden to step down. Do you think it's time for you to do the same?
Let me say this. There is spirited disagreements on which was the right vote. But as I said, I think we have mutual respect in our caucus, and we are all united.
Can I tell you, I don't believe they respect Chuck Schumer. And I will tell you that they're not united. The Democrat Party is far from united. This is MSNBC's Simone Sanders.
I'm about to change my registration to independent. The Democratic Tea Party was born the same day that Chuck Schumer took to that podium to read that very well-crafted statement that told us he folded like a paper napkin.
All right, so that doesn't sound real respectful of Chuck Schumer. What about Jasmine Crockett? She seems to be leading the revolt against Chuck Schumer.
I think Senate Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment. I definitely think that younger, fresher leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on, but many Americans may be looking for.
Younger and fresher is what she said. Jasmine Crockett, younger and fresher. People are saying, because AOC has been brutal against Chuck Schumer as well. And as I mentioned yesterday, people are actually out there saying that AOC may actually challenge Chuck Schumer for his Senate seat. That would be fascinating to watch. And then there was this moment when Schumer, again, was on The View with Sunny Hostin, where she actually told him how she felt. And she didn't really seem to pull any punches.
It gives me no pleasure to say this to you because we are friends, but I think you caved. I think you and 9 other Democrats caved. I don't think you showed the fight that this party needs right now because you're playing with by a rule book where the other party has thrown that rule book away.
Now, you know that Chuck Schumer, the same guy that has said that there's a lot of respect back and forth and so on and so forth, and the party is united. Chuck Schumer had to cancel his book tour over security concerns. That's what Chuck Schumer had to do, because I guess he wrote a book.
So he came on The View to get beat up by a couple of women?
Apparently he sure did.
Yeah.
He absolutely did.
The overnight show, Red Eye Radio, was saying that she was reading that statement from a piece of paper.
She did. She had like this cue card, and I'm not entirely certain why she needed a cue card for that, for telling him how she felt. But that didn't make any sense to me, why she was actually reading it the way that she did.
That loses merit in my mind.
Maybe she was given the words that she had to use to limit her criticism of him.
She wanted to be careful, is what you're saying, John.
Yeah. And, they've had issues with her saying things and speaking out and having lawyers tell her that she has to make mea culpa. So
yes.
I think perhaps she got herself in too much trouble in the past.
Now, here's the deal. New polling by NBC and CNN show the Democrats are at their lowest approval rating ever recorded.
Oh, my goodness.
27 and 29% respectively. They say the numbers show that Democrats disapprove of their own leadership. Hakeem Jeffries is not setting the world on fire. And there's a lot of people who don't like Hakeem Jeffries. Clearly, a lot of people don't like Chuck Schumer. One thing for all of us to watch is, will they have that phoenix rise from the ashes? Will this party that seems hell-bent on destruction and bad policy and TDS figure out a path forward for the midterm elections and for the next presidential run? They don't have a lot of time, Joan. They've got to come out with primaries if they're going to try to primary some of these folks that they feel are not strong enough against Donald Trump. Then they got to figure out who will run against, say, for example, a Chuck Schumer. But definitely this is something to watch for. And I do believe it is my contention that they do need some sort of a transformative figure. Donald Trump was transformative with the Republicans and the Conservative Party. Donald Trump was transformative. He was sort of politics adjacent. And then he jumped in. He jumped into the political ring. Stephen A. Smith is politics adjacent. Will he jump in? Most people say no. He just signed I guess it's a 5-year, $100 million contract with ESPN. So, I think a lot of people like to be able to talk about politics without actually having to be accountable for decisions. That might be Stephen A. Smith, but there's got to be somebody out there that the Democrats can use to be able to usher in a brand new Democrat Party. Now, me, as a staunch conservative, I keep saying, stick with Chuck Schumer and stick with Hakeem Jeffries and watch as the party continues in absolute disarray. So the question is the party over? Referring to the Democrats. We'll ask Brian Wilson at 7:06, and right now we've got the news at 7 with Joan Jones. Joan, what is coming up?
So were you hoping to get a break at the grocery store? Well, the Tennessee legislature has some bad news for you. That story and more, including a forecast with some severe storms coming today. That's all up ahead here on Super Talk 99.7 W.